Welcome to the Awesemo Slate Starter podcast. It's your Ol Pal Emac coming to you with one Pete the Heat Rogers as we get ready to start off a holiday week, Monday, 10-game NBA slate for Monday, November 22nd. Pete, how was your weekend? We had the MMA, we had full college football, college basketball, NFL, NHL, PGA. I'm sure there was some CSGO and some LOLs.
Yeah, it was an exciting weekend for all DFS sports and sports betting. I lay off the CS:GO on the weekends. I kind of prioritize fights in the NFL. But yeah, it was a fun weekend for sure. I'm excited to have another week of basketball and to break down this NBA slate with you. Solid amount of games. It's nothing too crazy, kind of like typical for now for this year. Some interesting spots for some players that we'll definitely get to with some injuries on their team and whatnot. But yeah, overall, cannot wait. Looking forward to eating a ton on Thursday. So
yeah, so Thursday, no basketball on Thursday. So there's a 10-gamer for Monday, 4-gamer on Tuesday. Let's see, 3, 6, 9. Pretty much everybody plays on Wednesday, and then it's loaded on Friday and Saturday as well. Of course, we have the 3 Thanksgiving games for NFL. Awesemo is going to be doing, I just learned, 3 hours of coverage prior to the kickoff of the first game. And then there will be an NFL Live Before Lock for that Thursday night game. I have to not go into work, but I have to work on Friday, and we're having an early morning team meeting. So I said, sure, I can host Thanksgiving night because I'm not going to be having any tasty beverages or anything like that. So we've got that to look ahead for. And then my alma mater, the University of Washington Huskies, they're going to play on Friday at 8 o'clock Eastern time. So I thought, hey, this all works out. I can work, and then I can still watch my alma mater lose. So a win-win all the way around. Do you have any good Thanksgiving traditions before we get into the slate?
just family time. Enjoy eating a lot. I'm not big into. I went to a school that has like a historic. We'll call it it's a historic matchup against a fellow rival team that is actually like one of the largest in the entire country. Especially, it's a NFA against New London in Connecticut, and it's something I've always wanted to go to. I've only gone a few times, but it's like the big thing around here. Everybody attends it. Everybody wants to go hang out, before they have Thanksgiving dinner. I wish I could attend it, but I think with nowadays, it might actually be on TV. It's crazy with technology. You know what I mean? Like I might not have to go anywhere. We'll have to see. It's pretty cool around here. Up in New England, it's not the biggest football type of state or area, but with a rivalry like this, it's something to definitely tune into.
All right. Well, let's dial back in here. We'll look at the NBA 10 games as we are wont to do here on the Slate Starter podcast. We will go loosely position by position. We are brought to you by Yahoo. So I will be rounding out each of the positions: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center with Yahoo plays. And then, of course, we will they'll get a little jumbled with the multi-position eligibility sides, but we'll call out more of the high-end plays. Of course, there's going to be all sorts of value with 20 teams in action on Wednesday. We do have some injury news already. Joe Harris remains out. Bruce Brown will be out with a hamstring injury that he suffered on Saturday night. There's a tiny chance Lamar Stevens comes back for Cleveland, but that's unlikely. Jared Allen was out for the last game, but he'll be back. Lauri Markkanen is getting close to returning from his bout with COVID. We have PJ Washington is upgraded to doubtful. He has now missed 2 weeks with a strained elbow. Or a hyperextended elbow. He may be out through Thanksgiving, but at least he's no longer just listed as out for multiple games in advance. Kevin Porter for the Houston Rockets has missed the last few games, undetermined on what's going on with him. They keep calling him questionable, but I don't know that he's going to play. He's missed a couple. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander listed as questionable. He tweaked his ankle in the last game. And then let's see. Vucevic is still a couple games away from returning from COVID. And I think that is all the main ones. Dylan Brooks is doubtful. He missed the last one with the hamstring injury. Of course, he had come back from a different injury, but dealing with that. And Embiid's still out. Oh, Tobias Harris has a bruised hip. So we'll have to see what's going on. Philadelphia is in the late game in Sacramento That is the only late night hammer at 10 o'clock on Monday. So let's break this down here. We'll start us off at point guard over on DK. I see some tough matchups with Ja Morant going into Utah. Some delicious matchups with Trae Young going against OKC. DeJounte Murray going against a much faster Phoenix team. What do you like here at the tippy top?
Yeah, obviously at the very, very top, we have James Harden in 11-6. I think it's an interesting spot, obviously targeting against Cleveland. Not the most appealing matchup by any means, but I think that, it's given Harden's ceiling and recent success in his past 2 games, 37 minutes against Cleveland, scored 56 fantasy points, 27 actual points, went 6 of 12 from the field. I think that he could definitely replicate something similar to that, especially with Joe Harris. And now you're talking about Bruce Brown. It's just a Brooklyn team that's, needing offensive production. And what I really like about James Harden, he's been solid all year. It's just the 20 field goal attempts. I really like that when he's aggressive out there and he's really trying to, lead the offense. Kevin Durant and him basically been alternating strong performances, but in a matchup like this, I think the price tag is definitely warranted, especially their depleted group out there against Cleveland. LaMelo Ball, in the 10K range now, definitely warranted. Seems a little expensive, but I understand it because he just contributes in so many areas. Pretty similar to a Russell Westbrook, DeJounte Murray type of player where they can stuff the stat sheet in similar ways. Definitely has a very good 3-point shot. Ja Morant at 9.7. I do think despite the tough matchup, he comes in with a nice salary discount. He was just previously 10-2, 10 flat, 10 flat, 10-2, 10 flat. So especially when you talk about Dylan Brooks basically going to be out, who is going to lead Memphis to a victory, it would definitely have to be Ja Morant. And when he really shoulders the load, I like what he can do. 45 and up point upside. I like him here at 9.7 despite the difficult matchup. A player in Trae Young, definitely a softball matchup against OKC at 9.4. I always do worry that, in OKC is terrible, Emac, absolutely terrible, that perhaps the second unit gets a little bit more run and just the starters can basically take the night off while just having limited active minutes. For some of my lineups, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to put Trae Young in there because it's a smash spot. But of course, it'll make me want to get to some of the cheaper plays on Atlanta that could get more run with the second unit. DeJounte Murray coming off a disappointing performance against Minnesota. I thought that was a little interesting. Went 2 of 12 from the field, was priced at 9,800. Now is back, not to earth, but back to where he should be at 9,200. He has that 60-point upside. It's an interesting spot, but against Phoenix, I don't really love the spot there. We'll have to pay attention to this Cole Anthony news. I know that he's questionable heading into this matchup against Milwaukee. If for some reason he is out, I would definitely look at a player like RJ Hampton down at the bottom that could definitely step in and provide some offense at a very, very cheap price tag of 4,200. In the mid-range, I've liked a decent amount of players in the mid-range. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is definitely somebody who's been extremely disappointing. I don't really want to get to him, and he's got a Q tag. That Q tag will basically make me pivot to a player in Josh Giddey, who has some nice flexibility with his position status, where you can put him at point guard or small forward. We'll get to the small forward in just a little bit, but that position seems a little weak for me. So I'll probably stick him in at small forward and target some of these awesome plays at point guard. Value plays that I really like. If Dylan Brooks is out, we could turn to a Tyus Jones to step in at 3,400. Outside of that, obviously it's a big slate, so the point guard position's absolutely loaded. Something I like to try different options in different combinations. And in some other positions that I'm not too fond of, I got no problem with a smaller player pool.
Throw it to me or not? Then I had to cough.
I was waiting. I got you.
Oh, good times there. Good times. A lot of shows. When I wake up, when I'm covering for everybody, when I wake up on Thursday morning, I know that between Thursday when I wake up And Monday, when I go to bed, I will have 12 articles to write, 4 shows, and 3 podcasts to do, in addition to working Thursday, Friday, and Monday at my day job. These are busy weekends, so I'm running a little ragged. It's been 2 weekends of this. I'm looking forward to Eric Lindquist to be back from his wedding trip, because I'm running on empty here. We got a bunch of people on vacation, but it's all good. There'll be times when I go on vacation, other people will fill in for me. So it's all comes back in fair play. So looking around here, I do like the calling out of Tyus Jones. He continues to be a capable fill-in point guard.
Yep.
He has been for a variety of teams. He's, he'll surprise us, but the second his price gets up to $5,000, not worth it anymore, because
Agreed.
either A, he can't get there, or B, he's been playing enough. It's not quite the fresh legs we're seeing with him when he goes from 17 minutes a night to 28 minutes a night, and is able to take advantage of things for short bursts until it normalizes. So just be cognizant of that. We know what we're getting from him, but he is a solid option at the low end. If we look quickly here at Yahoo, they've got let's see, Chicago is on a back-to-back today, and Phoenix is on a back-to-back. Both those teams played on Sunday, so we'll want to keep an eye out for any news on that end. There's really nothing at the low end that's standing out. Again, value will appear. Some interesting plays here. Lonzo Ball is at 26, continues to perform well with his new team. It's rather impressive how everybody's meshed together. And then it helps that Nikola Vucevic has been out for a week and a half, because that is giving extra minutes to Ball and to DeRozan and to Zach and to Alex Caruso. So they're seeing improved stats. That'll go back once they start working Vucevic back in, but it's nice to see that they've gelled as quickly as they have. Trae Young at 38 is quite an interesting option. We just have not seen his high upside games with any regularity. Now, that's because most everybody is healthy for Atlanta, meaning John Collins and Clint Capella. So when they're both there, that's taking a fair amount of the opportunities away from Trae Young, who is he's appropriately priced for the performance he's putting up at this point. And then at the top end, as you mentioned, I'd rather go with even in a tougher matchup, John Morant or LaMelo Ball going against Washington. Washington playing excellent ball. That's no pun intended for LaMelo, but excellent lately. So that's good to see. But Ball does have 50 or more fantasy points in 3 of his 5, and he's got 40. Oh gosh, it looks like almost every game let's just call it in 10 of his last 11. So he has just been phenomenal. We want to keep in mind, though, that Washington is no longer the defensive paper mache sieve that they were once upon a time, as in recently as the last 4 years. Moving on to shooting guard here. You've got Donovan Mitchell going against Memphis. They are playing at one of the faster paces and worse defenses, so that's helpful for him. We did see Jaylen Brown. Oh, no, we didn't. I thought he was going to. Oh, he's probable. There we go. I've lost track of the days. So he's probable to play tonight. So we haven't seen him since the 4th. So he's been out for 2.5 weeks with this hamstring issue. We're not getting a price break on him. There will be a trickle down effect for the other players on Boston that have been filling in the void left behind. I'm a little nervous, not because this isn't a great matchup, but on most of the sites, it looks like we're not getting much of a discount for him returning and, shall we say, splashing the pot. I don't want to play him. Would it shock you if he only was going to play, monitored minutes and played 25 to 27 minutes in his first game back? That feels about right.
Yeah, I would agree. As much as I want to play Brown in this matchup against Houston, it's just him coming back from that injury. Don't really know how many minutes he's going to get to. I know it's a fantastic matchup against Houston. I fully expect Boston to, do whatever they want offensively in this matchup. And what could actually happen is this could be a nice little spot where we could target some ownership plays where, everybody knows that Jaylen Brown is back. So what does that mean? It means that probably less production for the other pieces of Boston, like a Jason Tatum, Dennis Schroeder, Marcus Smart, players like that. where, they're not too appealing anymore. Yes, it's an amazing matchup, but now that you have Jaylen Brown's usage coming back, people probably won't want to get there. And I still think the amazing matchup could actually lead to stellar production from all of these players. So I got no issues with going to any of these Boston players outside of Jaylen Brown. I'm just going to take a wait and see approach to Jaylen and just kind of see how many minutes he gets to. It's not like he has a price discount priced at 9,600. He was previously, when he was active, 8,900, 8,700, 8,800. So yeah, they spiked them up. And for good reason. It's a fantastic matchup, but I don't recommend playing them. Bradley Beal has been, for me, a little underwhelming, just because I have this memory of Bradley Beal just busting slate after slate. And I don't know why he hasn't really had the same production this year. He's had strong games where he's dropping 20 to 30 actual points and, kind of staying within that 45 point, 50 point range, which it's solid production for sure. He's priced at 9,300. His offensive production is going to be needed in a matchup like this, but there have been plenty of players below him that are basically outscoring him night to night. And, when I see a Zach LaVine or a Devin Booker priced below him, I would just much rather get to either one of them. You talk about Zach LaVine and the Chicago team dealing with no Vucevic. LaVine has been absolutely fantastic, obviously scoring dependent, but we are at shooting guard, and I like targeting, LaVine and the Bulls in general. Devin Booker, I think at 8,600 is just way too cheap given his ceiling. And, he roughly gets you within the 40-point range. But against San Antonio, I think this is a nice matchup that he can exploit. Donovan Mitchell priced at 8,500. Again, his salary has come down a little bit, facing off against Memphis, who, without Dillon Brooks, it will be basically the Ja Morant show on the opposite end. And, Donovan Mitchell is going to raise the stakes and basically try to put away Memphis as best as he can. And I like him here at 8,500. D'Angelo Russell and Anthony Edwards, we spoke of it the last time that we did a show together. They basically alternate strong performances between the two of them. Tough to really put your finger on it, but I could basically put them in the same category and say I like both of these players against New Orleans. I've been picking on New Orleans basically all year. I really like targeting anybody against them. D'Angelo Russell isn't really needed for all of the offensive production because Anthony Edwards, just a decent offensive team in Minnesota, reckless team, for sure. But, D'Angelo in the past has been relied upon basically to lead the charge. And when he's able to kick it to other players to contribute, you're not going to see such high ceiling performances from him. Karis LeVert is an interesting player, and it's just Indy in general. I don't really know what they're trying to do with their rotations right now. You're seeing him in his past two performances, 18 minutes, 17 minutes. His price tag is extremely tempting because if he were to get 30 minutes, I would be all over Karis LeVert right here. But I just can't say with any confidence that I can recommend him here in this matchup. If we want to talk about value plays, without Bruce Brown, it's definitely appealing to get to Patty Mills again. And this is probably going to be one of the last times to get to Patty Mills before Joe Harris returns as well. 4,500, priced up a little bit, but I still think it's deserving because he can get you, high 20s to 35 fantasy points. We saw that in his most recent performance against Orlando. He went 9 of 13 from the field, scored 34.5 fantasy points. Game before that against Cleveland, went 7 of 14 and scored 29.5 fantasy points. I like it because he's out there to shoot. And when he's out there to shoot, he has a nice offensive stroke, and he can get hot. And I really like him here at this price tag. Given how I really like the top, and we spoke how RJ Hampton could have a boosted usage. If Cole Anthony is out, I would absolutely turn to RJ Hampton, and I would definitely prefer him over Patty Mills. In 28 minutes against Milwaukee, he went 6 of 12 from the field and scored 42.25 fantasy points, 19 points, 9 assists. Definitely somebody to keep your eye on, and I probably will be I will be expecting Cole Anthony to possibly miss this. I mean, I know he tweaked his ankle coming off a sprained ankle. How fast can you really recover from that? Well, we'll have to see. Just remember, RJ Hampton could be one of the best values on the slate.
How do you feel about the Garland and Ricky Rubio with Colin Sexton now out for the remainder of the season. So those are two guys that are interesting. And then depending on what happens with Devontae Graham, if he's out, Tomas Satoransky hasn't exactly set the world on fire, but he's still relatively cheap. There will probably be better plays than him, but with Graham out, that does allow for more opportunities to go to Brandon Ingram, Alexander Walker, and Hart. Now, Hart fell on his face in the last game. That, you know, he's coming off a magnificent game and then just did not play well at all in his last outing. But those would be the guys that would gain some value if Graham is out for another one. But what are your thoughts on the Cleveland guys? And then we'll head over to small forward.
Yeah, I don't mind it at all. I've been going to them and they've been fitting just fine. I feel like their ceilings are somewhat capped because they somewhat cannibalize each other at times, but I do like getting to Garland or Rubio in my lineups. Obviously, Garland's out there and he's going to attempt a ridiculous amount of field goals, 22 attempts, 26 attempts in his past two performances, coming off of 36 and a quarter and 45 and a quarter fantasy point performances. I like him here. Brooklyn has been pretty solid when they needed to be. And we also can think about how Cedi Osman is listed as doubtful for Monday's game. I think all that could do is boost up Rubio and Garland's usage and possible production. So I like it. I don't mind getting to it. It's not like it's not the best play in my opinion, but just because like it doesn't make you feel the best. I just feel like they're going to get you what you need for a lot of your lineups.
All right, on to our next position here, small forward. Mm-hmm. You've got Miles Bridges going against the Wizards. That is a reasonable matchup for him from a rebounding perspective. You also have Kevin Durant should be back with the team. He was dealing with the shoulder injury he was kind of a surprise scratch. He'd been a bit of a, shall we say, a dud. I mean, 2 games with below 35 fantasy points, 37 or less in 3 of his last 5. That's not great. So hopefully he's, if he needs to sit out again, doing this against Cleveland would be a perfectly acceptable time to do that. So keep an eye on that. If he's in, it gets a little tougher to like some of the Brooklyn people, it's hard to like him or Harden. If he's out, Harden becomes quite interesting. What else do you like here? We've got, let's see, some of the players we have not talked about. I like Gordon Hayward in his matchup against Washington. You've got Kyle Kuzma on the other side. I don't really want to play Kuzma, but he is one of the reasons that you are seeing Bradley Beal not have to take literally every shot. Beal is also doing more of a point guard thing with Spencer Dinwiddie, which is kind of interesting. Of course, each one runs the offense when the other's not on the floor, but they've sort of been taking turns, not like LeBron and Wade did, where they were like literally alternating every possession when they were started out in Miami. But it's like when you're watching them play, you're kind of like, all right, well, I got this, or you got, it doesn't seem to be overly designated, which is something new for Washington, which was basically Beal and John Wall for a long time. And then for the stint last year, it was Beal and Westbrook. And now it's like Beal, but he's got Dinwiddie and he's got Kuzma, and KCP knows what he's doing out there, and Daniel Gafford is healthy. And all of a sudden there's actual NBA rotational talent around him, which is something we haven't seen in Washington since they made their playoff run. Way back against Toronto in the Paul Pierce year was the last time they had a roster this deep. So perhaps we're being jaded from a fantasy perspective, but it's kind of fun watching them win for a change.
Yeah.
That watching them come back against, I think it was Atlanta. Was it Atlanta? No, it was Miami on Saturday. Was a lot of fun. So as a fan, but what do you like here at the kind of that mid tier, maybe a Josh Giddey kind of level?
Yeah. So the Kyle Kuzma call is interesting. I was looking at him and kind of looking back, and I feel like if Spencer Dinwiddie would be out, I would like Kyle Kuzma a lot more, obviously. With everybody in, I feel like I don't really like Kyle Kuzma all that much. Obviously, he's rebounding at possibly career best, and he's actually put in some solid performances against Miami, 19 points, 13 rebounds, 7 assists. So he's kind of doing it all when he's needed to. It's just if this team's completely healthy, then I'd feel like he doesn't have to take on such a large role, of course. I really like Miles Bridges, been playing him all year, 8,200. And just when you think that he's cooling down, he has a hot game against Atlanta in 38 minutes. Went 15 of 28 from the field. Can you realize that he shot the ball 28 times? That's what I want from a fantasy player. Is I want them to go out there and be absolutely aggressive and try to put the team on their back. He scored 35 actual points, 10 rebounds, and 54 fantasy points. Priced only at 8,200. I'm not going to say that he's matchup proof by any means, but I do think that Miles Bridges, given his aggressiveness, can definitely lead to more fantasy points. So I like him here. Brandon Ingram, haven't gotten to him too much this year at all. I still don't feel like he's completely right yet. But possibly if we have what's his name that could be out. Devontae Graham, excuse me. If Devontae Graham is out, then I think that Brandon Ingram could be interesting in this matchup against Minnesota. Chris Middleton, not really trying to get there yet. 7,800, definitely priced, appropriately. Anthony Edwards, 7,400, no problem at all. Josh Giddey would probably be like my go-to guy, especially if SGA is out. I like him here at 6,000 flat. I think it's a solid matchup against Atlanta, and he's going to be relied upon to, set up plays, basically contribute offensively, and do absolutely everything he can to keep OKC in this game. I don't really know how close they can keep this, but I just like his versatility. He can rebound at a high level, 8 rebounds, 15 actual points, 32.5 fantasy points, 12 rebounds, 14 points, 35.5 fantasy points against Milwaukee. I like Josh Giddey here. I'm probably not going to overthink this. If SGA is out, I'll probably just go right to Josh Giddey and try to get different in some other areas. If we want to look at a couple players that could be extremely interesting in the low salary range, we could look to a DeAndre Bembry just as a depth piece for Brooklyn. You talk about Bruce Brown being out, Joe Harris being out. Bembry played 41 minutes the other day. Didn't really have the best production at 15 and 3/4 fantasy points, but I'll say that he's just interesting because of his price tag at 3,100.
All right, rounding it out on Yahoo, Franz Wagner at 16 is pretty solid. It came off of rookies are going to have bad games, and he certainly had one in his last matchup. But $16 going up against Milwaukee, we know they encourage other teams to shoot from the wings. That fits right into Wagner's skill set, so that I think is an intriguing option. You had a Jeremy Lamb game. 46 fantasy points out of nowhere. Well, it wasn't completely out of nowhere. That was because new coach Rick Carlisle pulled the whole starting unit with 6 minutes into the third quarter and sent them to the bench. And then the understudies almost erased a 23-point deficit. They only lost by 3 after starting with what would that be? Doing the math, 6 minutes left in the third quarter. They ended up erasing a 20-point deficit. It's pretty good. So Kevin Huerter at 11, I think, is somewhat intriguing. Someone seemingly is always going to be out, one of the wings for Atlanta. And we know DeAndre Hunter is out, but just keep your eyes out. At some point, Danilo Gallinari is going to sit, or Reddish is going to sit, or something. They just never seem to all be healthy at the same time, even when nobody's on nobody's carrying an injury designation. And then Harrison Barnes at 26. Kind of interesting here. This is more of a a Yahoo only play. 39 fantasy points against Utah in his last one. He started out the season just like he was going to be a top 10 scorer. Now that's fallen off. We know exactly what we're getting from Harrison Barnes, and that is not it. But he is seeing heavy minutes once again. Of course, Luke Walton was fired on late Saturday night, or early. It was reported Sunday. So I'm not sure exactly when it happened. So we'll see a new coach or whatever. We'll see if that lights a spark under the team. That organization is just an absolute disaster from a coaching and front office perspective. But I do like him. How do you feel about Chris Middleton coming back after his layoff? He has played 30, 32, and 30 minutes since returning. Seems like this is an easy matchup, but are there easy matchups anymore? I mean, Orlando played them relatively tight last time. This is it's a home and home rematch of that one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Middleton. I think he's a little expensive for a guy just coming off an injury. It's a good matchup. there's just when Holiday's healthy and Giannis is healthy, I just wish Middleton was a little cheaper, priced closer to the low sevens or possibly, yeah, basically 7,000. I think at 7-8, it's just a little difficult with some other pieces missing on some other teams like a Josh Giddey. I really like that Harrison Barnes call. That's actually a player that I wrote down that I like a lot. I've gone to him quite frequently this year. I just love how he's a shooter and he's aggressive and he's able to be a somewhat stable source of points for this team. Whereas like De'Aaron Fox from night to night, you don't know if he's going to have a hot or cold night. Mostly cold nights for De'Aaron Fox this year, relatively disappointing. But yeah, I really like the Harrison Barnes call. I would much rather take a shot on him or Josh Giddey rather than paying up so much. But I understand if you want to really target depleted teams and bad teams, and Orlando could definitely fit that.
All right. Reminder, we are brought to you by Yahoo. New Yahoo users can sign up through the link below our video here on YouTube, or if you're listening on the podcast, it will be in the description. Come in on that link, create your account, put in a $10 deposit, and play in one paid contest. Yahoo will then give you $10 in site credit, and they will then send your information to Awesemo. We will reach out to you with a coupon code that will get you 30 free days of all access Awesemo, all sports, all sites, all everything at Awesemo just by signing up for our link. Basically, you're turning your $10 deposit into $10 in site currency and a $90 value. That's like winning a GPP right there. Great way to do it. We have a lot of fun with Yahoo. They, of course, had their $1 million baller today. That was with $1 million in prizes and only 800,000 worth of entries, meaning they were giving away an extra 200,000. They also had an $8 single entry contest that only got halfway full. It was a $5,000 or $6,000 person contest, and it only got about 3,000 people full today. So there's all sorts of reasons to go play at Yahoo. Lower management fees, not as many sharks. There are still good players there, but there are not as many sharks. The mass multi-entry people are usually only around for Sunday football, and there's plenty of contests on Yahoo that do not have 150 max. So you can get into those. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to build your bankroll over at Yahoo, where you can become a baller. Power forwards. What do we got here at the top? Well, we have Giannis, of course. We mentioned Jason Tatum in a gimme matchup. We don't know what's going on with Domantas Sabonis other than his coach seems to hate him. We're back to the can he and Miles Turner play together conversation again. And while they're not the most effective together, they're not horrible or detrimental either. I don't know why that seems to continually be an issue. Let's see, John Collins, reasonable price point at 7,200 here on DK, gets the great matchup against Oklahoma City. What else do you have here for us? Maybe a little Bobby Portis. He's got one more shot to make it rain before Brook Lopez comes back from his back injury.
Yeah, I mean, at the top, Giannis obviously is at the top of my list, and at 12,000, you're starting to approach, a salary that makes it difficult to construct, well-balanced lineups. I still like getting to Giannis though. KD a little bit less. I just want to see him perform a little bit better before I start to really roster him with some confidence. Tatum, with Jaylen Brown coming back, still an amazing matchup, but paying 10-1 for a player that's going to share some usage with Jaylen Brown now, I'd rather go to a DeRozan despite a difficult, not a difficult, but a solid matchup against Indy. In general, DeRozan's just really amplified his production all year long, taking solid shots, solid amount of shots, rebounding well, providing assists. While Vucevic is out, we'll have to keep tabs and make sure that he's not activated from COVID. But I do like DeRozan here still. But Domantas Sabonis, man, 8,700. That price tag is ridiculous. But I understand it's because of the lack of minutes in his previous two performances. 22 minutes against Charlotte, only scored 19 fantasy points. 22 minutes against New Orleans, scored 47 fantasy points. Had 20 actual points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, went 6 of 11 from the field. Played Domantas Sabonis. He's one of your best players. I just don't understand the confusion about the minutes and how him and Turner. It's weird to me. I really like Domantas Sabonis from a real life standpoint and obviously from a DFS standpoint. But the Bobby Portis one, I think, is one of the sneakiest on the slate. And I'm glad that you brought it up because that price tag is going to scare a lot of people off of Bobby Portis. Before Brooke Lopez comes back, Bobby Portis has shown that he needs minutes, and he's always going to get minutes, especially on the second unit. But now, without a Brooke Lopez, he has basically a final week or so until Lopez comes back. And I think that at 7,200 in a matchup like this, completely warranted. 49 and a quarter fantasy points, 41 and 3/4 fantasy points. Playing 30 plus minutes. He just killed this entire team the last time. 15 rebounds, 24 points. I really like Bobby Portis right here in the mid range. I think a lot of people will kind of gloss over it. It's just like, yeah, Bobby Portis, he's not in the 6 or 5K range anymore. Yeah, I'll go elsewhere. And I think that could be a mistake. You already know that Keldon Johnson's going to have significant ownership at 5,900. He's kind of everybody's go-to guy this year. And he's had strong performances. His salary has gone up there. As soon as his salary starts to increase, he's had some disappointing performances coming off back-to-back disappointing performances, 24 and a quarter fantasy points against the Clippers, 22 fantasy points against Minnesota. He's going to log nearly 30 minutes. And as long as he's taking more shots, I like it. Only 5 attempts and 9 attempts in his past 2. I don't like that. I like it when he's approaching the 10 to 12, field goal attempts. That's definitely what I want to see. This position's just interesting to me. I mean, we lost some value with Thaddeus Young and all that with Jakob Poeltl coming back. So that kind of kills that. Tobias Harris, I'm okay with getting to him, but if you watch Tobias Harris, like I watched the Philly game the other night, and it's just, I don't know, man. The guy that has such an amazing contract, and he should be making nearly every shot. And it seems like even easy buckets are sometimes a hassle for him. I like Tobias Harris, even at 8,100, just especially with Embiid and everything out. I like him here. But yeah, this position's a little interesting. Not too many appealing spots on the low end, for me at least. We do have James Johnson at 4,000 coming off an absolute monster performance, but I'm not really sure if that's going to, basically happen again. 39 fantasy points against Orlando. I think that could have just been a one random outburst.
Yeah, that was a reminder game, kind of like Ed Davis had. It's sort of like, these veterans will come in, they'll get a spot start, and you're like, they're not in the rotation, and then all of a sudden they get minutes and they just roll it up.
Yeah.
And then they go back to not being in the rotation.
Right.
So,
and I think it's okay. If people want to get to there, that's okay. He's priced up at 4,000. I just think with KD and everything that I don't know. I think that they would be looking more towards, Patty Mills, trying to shoot from the perimeter or something like that rather than James Johnson's production. But we'll have to see. This position, I would just probably prefer to pay at the top or middle, and instead of getting too cute.
Yeah, and I think one of the people that's perfectly said that the too cute probably is Jared Vanderbilt on DK, where he's 4,200. He's 11 on Yahoo. It's a little different there. However, he has started the last 6 games. Nice. He's taken 22 shots in those 6 games. Yeah, he doesn't shoot the ball. He rebounds, and if it's an offensive rebound, he might get a putback. He doesn't shoot outside of that.
Frustrating.
So it sort of caps his upside at 20, 22 fantasy points, which is great when he's super low, but he's super low because he never breaks through. So you need him to approach double-digit rebounds with a couple blocks and make 3 of the 4 field goals he's going to take, and you might get 20 fantasy points. So it's a big slate. Just be careful with that because he's one of those optimizer darlings that might get scooped up if you're not setting a limits cap or something, because he's going to look appealing from a median points per dollar projection, but he could very easily disappear on us. He's done that the last 2 years. Why not make it 3 in a row for him? But that's the power forward. I think spending is probably the option. The mid-tier, Keldon Johnson, you kind of called him out, 22 on Yahoo, but with the return of Jakob Poeltl, he's going to have more usage than Eubanks. He's going to have more usage than Thaddeus Young did. So that's going to take a little from Devin Vassell. It's going to take a little from Keldon Johnson, etc. Josh Hart still at 19. I think that one's okay. We'll he just had a bad game against Indiana. Prior to that, he had 42, 36, 34, 28, 30 fantasy points. Those are all perfectly solid, especially for 19 here going against Minnesota. Minnesota turns out their defense was a flash in the pan. They're now league average at best and starting to slide into the bottom half of the league average after starting out their first few games in the top 5. And who else do we have? That'll kind of cover it there. Let's move on over here to center. Up at the top, of course, we have Karl Anthony Towns going against Jonas Valanciunas. That is actually a good matchup for both of them. We've got Rudy Gobert going against Steven Adams in Memphis. So that's not the easiest of matchups for Gobert, but it's not someone he's got to chase around. It'll be another guy he fights for with rebounds with, but he's not going to be running all over the court. You've got Christian Wood going against sort of a perpetually soft Boston front court. We've got some options here. We're going to want to look for some guys that are all but assured of getting a double-double, maybe a DeAndre Ayton perhaps. What are you liking or not liking here at the center position?
Yeah, so I love this position, and I love the point guard position. I just think it's extremely deep. So I will be alternating different pieces for this position. I really like Cat at the top, Karl Anthony Towns at 9,500. I think that his price tag should be as close to 10K as possible, and he has been because he has that 50-point upside. But, with Anthony Edwards, D'Angelo Russell, his offensive production isn't really, needed as much as it has been in the past. But I do really like him here at 9,500. Obviously, Jonas Valanciunas, you spoke of it, 8,900. Very, very, nice price tag. But with Brandon Ingram, I do think that slightly affects his production, but I still like him. I like either one of them. Domantas Sabonis, we spoke about. Rudy Gobert, solid. All year round, he's been absolutely solid. His rebounding rate has been great. His scoring has been pretty good as well. I mean, scoring 14, 21, 15, 14. So he can definitely get you that double-double that we desire. I think one of the most interesting pieces here is Andre Drummond. And the reason I'll say that is because he's coming off 2 stinkers. The game against Denver, against Jokic, he's basically taken out of the game because of how bad he can cover Jokic and just what Jokic can do to that entire defense. Definitely not a spot where he could help the team absolutely at all. And against Portland, you already know how Nurkic, how the team just isn't consistent with their bigs and how many minutes they're going to have him on the floor. So I do think a matchup against Sacramento might be a little interesting, and it might be where Drummond could have some amplified minutes because it's not a bad matchup for him. It's something that he can actually go out there and compete with. I just think it's interesting here, and you already know at 7,800 with 3 poor performances, even against Utah. He could be one of these guys going completely overlooked. And anytime a player with massive potential is going overlooked, I kind of like to dabble a little bit. So I will be taking some shots on Andre Drummond. Obviously, we have Jared Allen facing his former team. I love Jared Allen, and revenge game. It's interesting, but you do think about how Cleveland is a little bit healthier. We'll have to pay attention to see if Markkanen will be active. What's the deal with Kevin Love? We already know that Chetty Osman and Colin Sexton are out, so we'll see what Jared Allen does. But I'll tell you what, Brooklyn doesn't play LaMarcus Aldridge all that much. If they were putting out a traditional center all the time, then I would really like Jared Allen in this matchup because I think that he could definitely provide high rebounds and good putback scoring. Christian Wood, 7,600, amazing. And without Kevin Porter, possibly this could be a spot where he's going to be relied upon. Obviously that'll result in Eric Gordon and Jalen Green stepping up. But I think that Christian Wood is the go-to guy for this offense. Outside of that, I mean, I just really, really like this position. DeAndre Ayton, I feel like he's just completely mispriced week to week, slate to slate. He's just always cheap, and I always get to a ton of him. Miles Turner's interesting here against Chicago without Vucevic, but we are worried about the rotations that we spoke about of DeMontis and Turner, and that definitely is a little cause for concern. We'll have to see. Jakob Poeltl in this matchup against DeAndre Ayton hasn't played all that much since returning in his previous game back. Only had 15 minutes and scored 8 fantasy points. Obviously, you're not going to expect a massive amount of minutes for him in his second game back, but it's just an interesting spot with a cheap price tag for him. I really like the top end of this position, and I'll definitely be alternating some pieces there and targeting a low-owned Drummond, I would imagine, especially without Joel Embiid.
All right. You didn't mention Clint Capella in there, did you?
Ooh, no, I did not, but I do like Clint Capella.
So Clint Capella, we're loaded at center. So Clint Capella, two of his last 3 games, he's had 20 and 15 games. 20 and 20 is in play against the Thunder here. They're a middle of the road rebounding team, but they really do better from their guards and wings. They don't have the best rebounding big men there. So I think this is a nice spot for Capella. So fortunately, we can play now with the multi-position eligibility on FanDuel. You can kind of get some of the more mobile bigs. They list as power forwards now. DK, we get some multi-position eligibility, but you also have the utility spot. Yahoo, we just have the utility spot, no multi-position eligibility. But a lot of times the best plays are at center, and you're kind of, it's how FanDuel used to be for years. But you want to, if you're playing 2 centers, you may be missing out on something else. So you got to be careful with how you do the lineup construction. But this looks like a 2-center night.
Yeah,
over there.
Emac, is that your go-to type of? Obviously, it's slate dependent, right? But on a night like this, where we have a ton of games and a ton of loaded centers, it's the easiest position for them to fall into points, right?
Mm-hmm.
I try to maximize exposure to centers as best I can, and obviously with the power forward / center position, you could possibly get to 3 that could basically come through for you. Is that something that you basically take into consideration for slates like this?
So it handles it so yes and no. The projections kind of handle it more for me, but on Yahoo, I like to do a lot of hand building. I usually build, 1 or 2 lineups. And frankly, if you look at my lineups, they're most of the players I write up in the DFS building blocks article every day, because I make sure that they're going to be good enough plays that they're going to hold their value regardless of what happens in news. Better value options will appear. Maybe some of the super duper stars become better depending on who's out, but these are still going to be the second, third, fourth best players at their position, which is, you can't have the best player at every position. We don't have the salary cap for it. So on Yahoo, a lot of times will try to decide how I'm going to play 2 centers. The one thing you got to be a little careful with is sometimes that leaves you in a hole for reacting to late news, because you can't get to the player that you want to get to. But with a little planning and forethought, it's not that big of a deal. For tomorrow, I could see my lineups having a Capella and Jared Allen, or 2 of Capella, Jared Allen, Bobby Portis, probably put Miles Turner in there, and potentially Steven Adams. Probably not Steven Adams at 18. Who else is there? Daniel Gafford at 14. He's going to be in a minute split. Maybe a Daniel Gafford. But I would probably two of those first 3 or 4 guys I mentioned will be. I like them as some of the best plays on the slate. Point per dollar, they'll probably be in my lineup. Usually in those articles, I only write up 1 center, because I could make all 3 or 4 featured players a center because of the way the pricing works and the opportunity, because they're closest to the basket. They get those rebounds. Rebounds are the easiest way to get 2 fantasy points along with scoring, because you either get the rebound or you don't. If you get an assist, you got to pass it to someone. Yeah. It's got to be within a basketball motion, meaning they can't stop, dribble, screw around, and then take the shot, because you lose the assist. This isn't hockey. And then they got to make the bucket. That's a lot to ask for. I think you should get an assist if they go to the foul line and they make both shots.
I have learned to not bet assist props, because I have been burned too many times because of situations like this. And I think, for me, I overestimate how easy it is to get assists. And, given the different scenarios that you spoke of, it's not. It's difficult at times. So that's when we see these high assist numbers. It's something definitely to pay attention to.
Yeah. And fun note, I was actually a stat keeper one year in high school.
Oh, really?
All my friends were on the team. I was only 5'9", and not like even back then, that wasn't nearly tall enough to be on the teams, because I would be more of the rebounding forward. That doesn't work when everybody else is 6 foot or taller and you're 5'9". It's fun when you're in the freshman team, but after that, it's like, no, it doesn't happen. So I was always going to the games, and so I just thought it'd be fun so I could go to the away games. So I did that, and that was just my start of really enjoying numbers and seeing stuff. But I read this whole thick book about how you become a scorer keeper and all this other stuff. And there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot of rules. And my coach, or the coach, he wasn't sure he wanted me to do it because he didn't know how, but he needed somebody to track it for the team. Because we were trying to do I was coming up with what I now know sort of to be advanced analytics. Not really, but it was like, I was coming up with something that was close to effective field goal percentage without having it. Like, it was how many points do you get per shot? Because I was trying to figure out how to value free throws, because they were just like, they're only worth 1 point. And then that was right around the time the 3-point range came into play. So I was trying to say, well, if you make 33% of your free throws, that's like 50% from the field. And literally that was like the first or second year they had it in our high school league, right? So that everybody's like, no, you don't shoot it from all the way out there. You need to be closer to the basket. And that was 18 feet, 18.6 or whatever. And we had guys that could just make those like layups. And it's like, let them shoot that because it's worth more. So there you go. Back pen and paper day. We didn't even have computers back then, but I was trying to figure this stuff out. So I've always been interested in the numbers and in basketball and those sorts of things. But I don't think I've ever told that story on any of our shows. So cool, there's my gift to you guys.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
But yeah, it's tricky. But he would go and grade my first few games, and after he's like, shit, you do a really good job. But rebounds, if you direct it to somebody intentionally, that's your rebound, not whoever ends up with it. The assist, it's got to be a basketball move and this, that, and the other, right? So like, I wouldn't be counting him, and the players would get pissed, and the coach would go watch tape and go, no, he's right.
Yeah. So when we're all angry and upset from stat corrections, we can basically blame the Emacs all around for their, the change of the stat from a rebound to not, from an assist to not. That's interesting to know. And definitely, it's nice to learn a little bit more and just to always pay attention to something like that, because we've all had stat corrections help us and hurt us.
Right. And I never got into it really for football. I sub in every now and then. I didn't like doing that. And then I ran track, so I never had a chance to do it for baseball. But I did like it for basketball that one year. It was fun. But with that, we're going to get on out of here. You can follow Pete on Twitter at Pete the Heat MMA. I am at Emac DFS. Of course, it is Awesemo _COM. Oh, I forgot to mention $1 package, NFL package, promo code Gobbler gets you, or probably stuffing promo. We're gonna, trust me, there's going to be a variety of promos coming out this week that all have Thanksgiving themes.
Oh,
stuffing is this one. You get 1 week of the Express package NFL for $1. That ends on Black Friday. With that, gamers, good luck.